Thanksgiving had always been my daughter's favorite holiday. Not because of the food. She barely ate half of what I cooked most years. It was the gathering she loved, the long table, the voices overlapping, the chance to host people she admired. This year she insisted we hold dinner at her house. 15 guests, she said casually on the phone weeks earlier. Mostly colleagues, a few friends from the firm, a couple neighbors. I spent the entire morning in her kitchen. Turkey roasting slowly, steam rising from the potatoes, the smell of butter and sage filling the house. Every few minutes the front door opened and someone new arrived, well, dressed, confident people who shook my hand politely before drifting toward the living room where the wine was. Most of them knew my daughter from work. They spoke quickly, comfortably, in the kind of language professionals develop around each other. Legal terms slipped casually into jokes, stories about cases, judges, clients. I moved between the stove and the dining table, refilling glasses, bringing plates out when they were ready. Several guests asked my daughter how she had managed law school, how she built her career so quickly. She answered easily. She had always been good with words. I stood near the kitchen doorway at one point, listening as someone praised her determination. She must come from strong stock, one man said with a smile. My daughter laughed. She definitely does, she replied. Then she glanced toward the kitchen and added, almost lightly, my mom worked hard. That part was true. It was just incomplete. Dinner itself went smoothly. Plates passed from hand to hand. Conversations rose and fell like gentle waves across the table. I noticed something small. When my daughter introduced me to people, she did it quickly. Not dismissively, just vaguely. This is my mom. No details followed. I didn't think much about it at first. Over the years I had grown used to occupying the quieter parts of rooms like this. After the dishes were mostly cleared and the second bottle of wine opened, someone suggested a toast. It started casually. One guest raised his glass to my daughter's success. Another praised her work ethic. Someone joked about the long hours lawyers put in. My daughter stood with her own glass, smiling at the attention. She had always carried herself well in front of people. Even as a teenager she had the kind of presence that made others listen. I guess I should say something, she said. The room quieted. She began lightly, telling a story about growing up in a small house, and how strange it felt now to be surrounded by so many accomplished people. Everyone smiled politely. Then her tone shifted into something playful, theatrical, the kind of humor people use to keep attention focused on them. You know, she said, lifting her glass slightly, sometimes I'm a little embarrassed to admit my mother is just a waitress. For a moment, there was silence. Then laughter spread around the table. Not cruel laughter, just the easy kind people give when they think a joke is harmless. I sat very still. Across the table, my daughter was smiling along with them. In the quiet space behind that laughter, my mind drifted somewhere else. I saw the diner again. The smell of coffee grounds and frying oil that clung to my clothes for years. I remembered the early shifts, when the sky outside was still dark and the kitchen lights buzzed overhead. But the diner had only ever been part of the story. There had also been the cleaning job downtown, empty office buildings at 5 in the morning, polishing glass doors while security guards nodded politely. And the catering shifts on weekends, carrying trays through crowded banquet halls. 3 jobs. 30 years. Not once had I listed them all out for my daughter. She knew about the diner because she had visited there as a child. The other 2 had simply existed in the background, like the steady ticking of a clock. I had never corrected the misunderstanding. It never seemed important, until now. The laughter at the table faded gradually as the conversation tried to move forward. I stood quietly and walked toward the hallway. No one stopped me. When I came back a minute later, I was holding a small cardboard box. It was worn at the corners, the kind of box people use to store things they don't plan to show anyone. I placed it in the center of the table. The room grew quiet again. My daughter looked at me confused. "What's that?" she asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I lifted the lid and gently spread a few papers across the table. Old pay stubs. Employee badges from jobs long finished. Receipts from the university cashier's office. Each one carefully dated. A few guests leaned forward without realizing they had done it. My daughter reached for the first receipt. Her smile faded slowly as she read. She picked up another. And another. The dates moved backward across the years she had been in school. Installment payments for tuition. Books. Housing. Her brow tightened slightly. "These are—" she started. "You knew about the diner," I said quietly. My voice sounded calm, even to me. I didn't think the rest mattered. The room had grown completely silent now. The laughter from earlier seemed like something that had happened hours ago instead of minutes. My daughter turned over a pay stub from a cleaning company she had never heard of. Then another from a catering service. Her face changed in stages, first confusion, then recognition, then something heavier. One of the guests shifted in their chair. Another cleared their throat softly. Without speaking, people began excusing themselves. Coats were gathered. Quiet goodbyes exchanged. Within 10 minutes the room that had been full of voices was nearly empty. My daughter remained seated, the box open in front of her. I started stacking plates and carrying them to the kitchen sink. Behind me, she flipped slowly through the remaining papers. Finally she spoke. "You had 3 jobs." I rinsed a dish under warm water. "For a while," I said. She didn't say anything else. Not an apology, not a defense, just silence. When I returned to the table, I closed the lid on the box and slid it gently toward her. "You should keep those," I said. She rested her hand on the lid but didn't open it again. The turkey had gone cold. The candles were burning low. Neither of us spoke as the evening settled quietly around us. Some truths take time before they find their place in a room.